PA system came on at 2 a.m., not feedback, not static. A calm, familiar voice echoed through the empty hallway and said, "Custodial staff, please report to the east hallway." I stopped mopping and looked up at the ceiling speaker like it had just spoken directly into my head, because I was the custodial staff, and the east hallway had been locked for years. I worked nights as a custodian at a public high school in a small town. It was one of those schools that had been built in stages over decades, so half of it felt modern and half of it felt like a time capsule. New classrooms, old wings, sealed corridors that nobody really talked about anymore. My shift started at 9 in the evening and ended at 5 in the morning. I worked alone. No supervisor. No co-workers. Just me, a rolling cart, a set of keys, and a checklist taped to the inside of a janitor's closet door. I liked nights because they were predictable. The building had a rhythm after dark. Air vents kicked on and off, pipes knocked, lights hummed. Once you worked there long enough, you stopped noticing it. That's how I knew something was wrong, because the PA system was never part of that rhythm. During the day, the PA ran everything. Morning announcements, class changes, fire drills, lockdown tests. At night, it was supposed to be completely inactive. The control console was locked in the front office, and only administrators had access codes. I had been told very clearly on my first week, if the PA goes off after hours, it's either a system test announced ahead of time, or it's a problem. There were no tests scheduled that night. At first, I didn't move. I just stood there, holding the mop handle, listening to the faint echo of the announcement fade down the hallway. Then the speaker clicked again. "Custodial staff, please report to the east hallway." Same tone, same pacing. It didn't sound pre-recorded. It sounded responsive, like it was waiting to see if I would react. The east hallway was part of the original building. Old science labs, storage rooms, and classrooms that hadn't been used since before I worked there. Years ago, they'd found asbestos during a renovation, sealed the entire wing, and rerouted everything else around it. The doors were locked. The lights were off. Even maintenance wasn't allowed in without special clearance, which meant there was absolutely no reason for the PA system to be directing anyone there, especially me. I told myself it was a delayed announcement. Maybe something queued up earlier in the day and finally played. Systems glitch. Old buildings glitch. I pushed my cart toward the main hallway anyway, more out of habit than curiosity. I figured I'd finish my route and forget about it. But as I passed the trophy case, the PA came on again. This time, closer. "Custodial staff, you haven't responded." That's when my stomach tightened, because it wasn't just repeating a message, it was reacting. I stopped walking. The hallway lights hummed softly overhead. The floors were freshly waxed, reflecting the ceiling lights in long, dull streaks. Classrooms on either side were dark, desks stacked neatly, whiteboards still covered in faded lesson notes. The building felt like it was holding its breath. I waited for another announcement. Nothing. After about 30 seconds, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and pushed the cart forward again. I was halfway to the east hallway doors when I heard something else, not from the PA, from behind the locked doors themselves, a sound like something sliding across the floor. Slow, deliberate. I stopped again. The sound stopped with me. The PA clicked on overhead. "Custodial staff, you're standing at the correct location." I looked up at the speaker, then at the heavy double doors at the end of the hall. They were exactly where I was standing. I hadn't told anyone where I was. I hadn't said a word. The voice continued. "Please proceed. Cleaning is overdue." That word hit me harder than anything else. Cleaning. Not inspection. Not maintenance. Cleaning. Like it knew exactly what my job was. I backed away from the doors and turned around, pushing my cart faster now, wheels rattling a little too loud in the empty hallway. I headed straight for the front office. If something was wrong with the PA system, I needed to see it for myself. The front office lights flickered on when I flipped the switch. The room felt smaller at night, cramped with desks and filing cabinets. The PA control console sat against the wall, its screen glowing faintly. I leaned in and checked the display. No active announcements, no queued messages, no user logged in. But when I opened the event log, my throat went dry. There it was. 2 a.m., announcement initiated. East hallway, authorized by System. I scrolled further back through the event log, my finger dragging slowly across the screen. The PA hadn't just activated once. There were earlier entries, not announcements, checks. System pings to speakers in unused rooms, brief activations that lasted less than a second. No audio attached, just timestamps and locations. The oldest entry was from weeks ago, always after midnight, always when I was scheduled. It looked less like a malfunction and more like testing. Like something had been learning the building. I noticed another pattern. The system never checked classrooms that were still in use. It avoided offices. It avoided the gym. It focused on places that were forgotten. Storage rooms, old labs, hallways no one walked anymore. The east hallway showed the most activity by far, and every test ended at the same speaker, the one directly above the locked doors. I stared at that word for a long time. System, not a person, not an account, just system. The PA activated again, louder this time, echoing through the office speakers. Custodial staff, please do not ignore the request. I unplugged the console. The screen went dark. The voice continued anyway. I don't know why I went back to the east hallway. I tell myself it was to make sure the doors were still locked, or to confirm nothing had changed. But the truth is, curiosity has a way of pushing past common sense when something feels unfinished. The hallway was darker now. One of the overhead lights had shut off, leaving the far end in shadow. As I approached the doors, the smell hit me. Old chemicals, dust, something metallic, like a storage room that hadn't been opened in a very long time. The PA spoke softly, almost politely. Thank you for responding. The locks on the doors clicked, both of them. I stopped walking. The doors slowly creaked open on their own. The east hallway was darker than I remembered, and quieter. The floor tiles were dull and stained, the walls scuffed from decades of carts and students that no longer passed through. Halfway down the hall, lights flickered on, not all at once. One, then another, then another. Like something was leading me. I didn't step inside. I stood in the doorway, heart pounding, hands tight around the mop handle like it was going to protect me from something I couldn't see. Spill detected, the PA said. My chest tightened. Earlier that night, I'd spilled a bucket of dirty water near the hallway entrance. I'd planned to come back and clean it after finishing another wing. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't logged it. But whatever was speaking through the PA knew. Then it said my name, not angry, not loud. The way a teacher says your name when you're absent. I stepped back and slammed the door shut. The locks clicked again, harder this time. I stood there shaking, listening. The PA was silent. I didn't sleep much the next day. When I came back for my next shift, everything looked the same, but it felt different, like the building was aware I'd noticed it. I changed my routine on purpose, cleaned rooms out of order, took longer breaks, skipped areas I normally started with. The PA didn't speak. But the longer I stayed away from the east hallway, the more subtle things became. Lights turning on ahead of me, doors unlocked that should have stayed closed, A cart left exactly where I usually parked it, even though I hadn't left it there. Not corrections, reminders. I finished my shift in the fog. I stayed in well-lit areas. I avoided the east hallway completely. When morning staff arrived, the building felt normal again. Too normal. Before I left, I checked the front office one more time. The PA console was plugged back in. The event log had one new entry. 2 a.m. Task completed. No user, no explanation. I still work nights at that school. The PA doesn't speak often anymore, but sometimes, if I fall behind schedule, a nearby speaker clicks, and a calm voice reminds me where I need to be.